Imagine a city where the music never stops, where the air is filled with the soulful notes of jazz, and where the streets are alive with vibrant culture. This is New Orleans, a city of life, laughter, and music. But beneath the surface of this lively city, a shadow loomed. Between 1918 and 1919, New Orleans was gripped by fear as a mysterious and brutal figure emerged from the darkness. This is not just a story of crime, it's a tale of terror that danced to the rhythm of jazz. This is the chilling story of the Axeman of New Orleans. New Orleans, the birthplace of jazz, was no stranger to the sounds of trumpets, saxophones, and pianos filling the night air. But in the midst of this musical haven, an ominous silence began to spread. The year was 1918, and the city would soon find itself in the grip of a serial killer unlike any other. An unknown assailant, wielding an axe, began a reign of terror that left a trail of blood and fear. The victims were seemingly chosen at random, their only commonality being their ethnicity and occupation. Italian American grocers were the primary targets, and the brutality of the attacks sent shockwaves through the community. This was no ordinary killer, this was the Axeman of New Orleans. The Axeman's methods were as mysterious as his identity. Breaking into homes in the dead of night, he attacked his victims with a level of savagery that stunned the city's residents. And yet, he left behind more questions than answers. Who was he? Why did he choose his victims? And what was his connection to the city's jazz scene? Stay tuned as we delve into the gruesome details, the bizarre clues, and the eerie jazz connection that makes the story of the Axeman of New Orleans one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in American history. Our story begins on May 23rd, 1918. Joseph and Catherine Maggio, owners of a small grocery store, were found brutally murdered in their home. Their throats had been slashed with a razor and their heads bashed with an axe. The police found a message scrawled on the sidewalk near the crime scene, adding to the mystery and terror. The scene was gruesome. Catherine's throat had been cut so deeply that she was nearly decapitated, while Joseph succumbed to his injuries shortly after being discovered by his brothers. The murder weapon, a blood-stained razor, was later found on a neighbor's lawn, and the axe used in the attack was left at the scene. The killer had broken into the Maggio residence by chiseling out a panel on the back door. Despite the brutal nature of the crime, no money or valuables were taken, ruling out robbery as a motive. The police were baffled and the community was horrified. This marked the beginning of a series of murders that would haunt New Orleans and leave a lasting legacy of fear. Over the next year, a chilling pattern began to emerge. The Axeman's victims were primarily Italian American grocers targeted in their own homes during the dead of night. The killer's modus operandi involved chiseling out a panel on the back door, gaining silent entry while the occupants slept. Once inside, he used their own axes or other tools found at the scene to commit the murders. The brutality and randomness of the attacks plunged the city into a state of panic. Families fortified their homes and slept with weapons by their beds, while others even resorted to keeping vigil through the night. The fear was palpable. The streets of New Orleans, usually alive with the sound of jazz, were now quiet and tense. One of the most notable attacks occurred on June 27, 1918. Louis Bessumer, a grocer, and his mistress, Harriet Lowe, were discovered by a delivery driver the morning after they had been brutally attacked in the quarters behind their store. Louis had been struck in the temple with a hatchet, while Harriet sustained severe head injuries. Both survived but were left with lifelong scars, both physical and emotional. The Axeman struck again on August 5th, 1918, this time targeting Anna Schneider, a pregnant woman. She was discovered by her husband, covered in blood with severe injuries to her face. Miraculously, Anna and her baby survived, but the horror of the attack left a lasting impression on the community. Then, on March 10th, 1919, the Axeman's reign of terror reached a new height of brutality. Rose and Charles Cortimiglia were attacked in their home, sustaining severe head injuries. Tragically, their 2-year-old daughter, Mary, did not survive the attack. The scene was one of unimaginable horror, leaving the community reeling. These seemingly random, yet methodically executed attacks left the police with few leads. The killer left no clues that could point to his identity, and despite numerous theories and suspects, the Axeman continued to evade capture. The terror he unleashed was not just in the act of killing, but in the pervasive fear that no one was safe and the next victim could be anyone. On March 13th, 1919, the Times-Picayune newspaper received a chilling letter from someone claiming to be the Axeman. This letter would become infamous not just for its content, but for the eerie calm it brought to a city in terror. The letter read, Hell, March 13th, 1919. Esteemed mortal, they have never caught me, and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians and your foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with blood and brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. If you wish, you may tell the police to be careful not to rile me. Of course, I am a reasonable spirit. I take no offense at the way they have conducted their investigations in the past. In fact, they have been so utterly stupid as to not only amuse me, but His Satanic Majesty, Francis Joseph, etc. But tell them to beware. Let them not try to discover what I am, for it were better that they were never born than for them to incur the wrath of the Axeman. I don't think there is any need of such a warning, for I feel sure the police will always dodge me, as they have in the past. They are wise and know how to keep away from all harm. Undoubtedly, you Orleanians think of me as a most horrible murderer, which I am, but I could be much worse if I wanted to. If I wished, I could pay a visit to your city every night. At will, I could slay thousands of your best citizens, for I am in close relationship with the angel of death. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 earthly time on next Tuesday night, I am going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I am going to make a little proposition to you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well then, so much the better for you people. One thing is certain, and that is that some of your people who do not jazz it out on that specific Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe. Well, as I am cold and crave the warmth of my native Tartarus, and it is about time I leave your earthly home, I will cease my discourse, hoping that thou wilt publish this, that it may go well with thee. I have been, am, and will be the worst spirit that ever existed either in fact or realm of fancy. That night, the city was filled with the sounds of jazz. Families and businesses alike played jazz music, filling the air with a melody meant to ward off the menace. And remarkably, it worked. The night passed without a single attack. The Axeman's letter had succeeded in turning terror into a bizarre night of citywide celebration, where jazz played the role of savior. Among the numerous victims of the Axeman, the stories of Louis Bissumer and his mistress Harriet Lowe, as well as Rose and Charles Cortimiglia, stand out due to their sheer brutality and the fear they spread through the community. On June 27, 1918, grocer Louis Bissumer and his mistress, Harriet Lowe, were attacked in the quarters behind Bissumer's store. They were discovered the next morning by a delivery driver, critically injured but still alive. Bissumer had been struck above his right temple with a hatchet, which resulted in a possible skull fracture, while Harriet had been hacked above her left ear. She was left with a partially paralyzed face and later succumbed to complications from her injuries. This attack was particularly chilling as it occurred in a place of business, a location people generally considered safe during working hours. On the night of March 10th, 1919, Rose and Charles Cortemiglia's household in the New Orleans suburb of Gretna was shattered by another gruesome attack. Awakened by the noise of an intruder, Rose found her husband in a desperate struggle for his life. The attacker, wielding an axe, inflicted severe head injuries on both Rose and Charles. Tragically, their 2-year-old daughter, Mary, was not spared. She died from her injuries in her mother's arms. This attack not only heightened the terror among residents, but also led to a bitter and tragic miscarriage of justice. Rose, in her traumatized state, wrongly accused her neighbors of the crime, leading to their wrongful imprisonment. Another notable attack occurred on the night of August 10th, 1919. Grocer Steve Boca was awakened by a dark figure standing over his bed. The intruder struck him with an axe, fracturing his skull. Boca managed to stagger to a friend's house before collapsing. Despite the severity of his injuries, Boca survived but could not recall details of the attack. In early September 1919, 19-year-old Sarah Lahman was found by her neighbors with severe head injuries and missing teeth. She had been attacked with an axe, which was left on her lawn. Like others, she survived but had no memory of the assault. The Axeman's last known attack took place on October 27th, 1919, when Mike Pepitone was found murdered in his bedroom by his wife, Esther. He had been struck 18 times with an axe. Esther could only glimpse a dark figure fleeing the scene, and no substantial leads were ever found. Each attack by the Axeman was marked by its ferocity and the lack of discernible motive, leaving behind a community gripped by fear and speculation. The randomness and brutality of these crimes created an atmosphere of dread that lingered long after the Axeman disappeared. Over the years, various theories have emerged about the identity of the Axeman. One prominent suspect was Frank Doc Mumphrey, who allegedly used the alias Joseph Monfer. Mumphrey was linked to the crimes through his suspicious behavior and connections to some of the victims. He was believed to have had a jazz business which thrived suspiciously well during the period when the Axeman's letter incited the city to play jazz music to avoid his wrath. This led some to speculate that he might have orchestrated the murders to benefit his business. Another theory points to the possibility that the killings were racially motivated, targeting Italian immigrants who were prominent in the grocery business. During this time, Italian Americans in New Orleans faced significant prejudice and were often marginalized. The Axeman's choice of victims could have been an expression of this racial tension. Despite the investigations and numerous suspects brought in for questioning, the true identity of the Axeman remains a mystery. The lack of concrete evidence and the killer's ability to evade capture have led to a myriad of speculative theories, but none have been definitively proven. Some historians and crime researchers like Colin Wilson and Richard Warner have delved into historical records to uncover potential suspects, yet the elusive nature of the Axeman has kept his identity shrouded in mystery. Theories about the Axeman's identity range from a single deranged individual to a conspiracy involving multiple people with various motives. The police were often baffled by the precision and brutality of the attacks, as well as the seeming lack of motive beyond sheer terror. This mystery has turned the Axeman into a figure of both horror and intrigue, leaving his true identity one of the most enduring mysteries in the annals of American crime history. Although the Axeman's reign of terror ended abruptly in October 1919 with the murder of Mike Pepitone, his legacy lives on in the annals of American crime history. The story has inspired books, TV shows, and even a storyline in American Horror Story. The Axeman of New Orleans remains an eerie reminder of a city's brush with a faceless terror. Modern New Orleans, with its vibrant jazz clubs and rich cultural tapestry, still bears the scars of this dark chapter. Historians and local residents often recount the chilling tales of the Axeman, ensuring that the memory of those harrowing nights is never forgotten. The fear that once silenced the streets has now become a part of the city's folklore, a haunting narrative that underscores the fragility of safety and the enduring power of fear. Despite the passage of time, the Axeman's identity remains one of the most enigmatic mysteries in American crime history. The terror he inflicted on New Orleans has been immortalized in various forms of media, from detailed historical accounts to fictional adaptations, each retelling adding another layer to the legend. The jazz loving killer who once prowled the streets under the cover of darkness has left a legacy that is both fascinating and horrifying. His story is a stark reminder of how a single individual can plunge an entire city into chaos and how the echoes of such terror can resonate through generations. The Axeman of New Orleans may never be unmasked, but his story continues to haunt the imaginations of many. As we delve into the past, we are reminded of the fragility of safety and the enduring power of fear.